So excited to be here to participate in the first ever Cloud Ratings Value Creation Summit. So my role at PDL is I lead our investment research vertical. I support both direct growth equity, private equity, venture capital investors leveraging our data for their own in-house sourcing and diligence and broad portfolio support, as well as a number of platforms that are relying on PDL data to showcase insights that they collect. I've been working with Cloud Ratings and Matt for almost a year now, and super excited to see the growth of their organization and the great plans we have in the future to add more value for the data offering in a partnership. So the purpose of kind of my presentation today is twofold. One, we want to share with you a little bit more about the why of PDL, and two, help you better interpret this sort of data as you see more and more information coming through Matt's research. So just to give you a little bit of a sense of what we offer, as our name suggests, we focus a lot of our efforts on people and more specifically professionals. Really where we find our core competency to be is mapping the intersection between professionals and companies. So we cover 720 million professionals across the 72 million companies that have an online web presence. And our latest product offering is actually helping to capture the supply, or not just the supply, but really the demand of talent through job posting information. So as a result, what we do best is tell you in 2017, what did Snowflake's employee count look like? But not just their employee count, what was their employee composition? How many middle managers and sales did they have? How many RevOps individuals did they have to support this organization as they were starting to see some rapid growth, as an example? And just to give you kind of like a step back, PDL has been around for a decade. By amount raised, by number of customers, it's our belief that we're the largest player in the space here. And one of the reasons why is because we have a very robust process of how we are collecting this data in the first place. We have three key strategies here. The first is we have what we call a data union. So think about this as partnerships that have with data providers that may be collecting super interesting data that could be relevant to our customers. We sign into co-op agreements effectively where we're giving these providers our data and these providers are giving us their data. An example I always like to give is, at this event itself, you registered, you put in your name, your role, your location, the company you work for, maybe some contact information. Now that could be a partner in our data co-op, which of course, we always have the right compliance and legal obligations to be able to use this information. That could be a data set that we're used to stream in and gather proprietary information across the world's workforce. Second, we license a lot of information, similar to how a lot of the folks on the line, license data. We're constantly on the lookout for buying new data. Typically, they have to fit into at least one of three buckets. Is this adding coverage? Is this adding accuracy? Or we will also be buying data that is redundant to some degree to make sure that we're not single threaded on a sole data source. An example here is of the 720 million professionals, we like to layer on not just work experience information, but also contact information. And a lot of our licensing of data is coming from getting access to contact information to help your downstream workflows. And then finally, in probably the biggest bucket of what kind of data we collect is what's available publicly in the World Wide Web. So we go directly to company websites to collect job posting data. We go directly to LinkedIn to collect information about someone's work experience. And then we also are collecting funding data through a variety of different means, of course, through compliantly sourced information and strategies. And so, while I always think about our multifaceted approach to collecting this sort of information as our core differentiator, our engineering team talks a lot about how we clean this information, structure this information, and tag this information in a way that is very developer and product friendly. So what we do is we're taking thousands of data sets on a monthly basis, cleaning, standardizing, deduplicating, merging, so you have a very easy to analyze large database at your fingertips. An example here is for every role, we will standardize the location, not only of where you, the individual, live, but also where the organization is based. We will also take your functional role and provide tagging accordingly, not just finance versus sales versus marketing, but within finance, are you FP&A? Are you accounting? Are you finance strategy, etc.? And then what we'll also finally do is share with you the hierarchy of where you sit within the organization. Are you an intern? Are you a director? Are you a manager? Are you a VP? Are you a CEO? The downstream benefits of this are that you can start to do quick analysis to say, what is the retention rate by VPs at a given organization? And you can look at that historically. So how do we work together with Cloud Ratings? Now, there's a number of ways that we've been partnering thus far. Just to make it very simple, Cloud Ratings is leveraging, and their data team are leveraging our API through programmatic access to help understand and utilize PDL data for a select number of companies that they track through their indices. Through this API access, they're able to develop thought leadership and research reports that sometimes will mention PDL information. And then as you can see through this event itself, we're really excited to do more event activation, content partnerships as well. And so just to sort of take this with, hey, what at its core, what's the foundation of PDL? How do we fundamentally work with Cloud Ratings? Want to evolve this to how could you, the audience, start to potentially use this sort of information? So just to double click on the professional profiles, again, we have 720 million professionals in our database today. On the left-hand side, these are what I would call more the table stakes information of what is needed for someone who wants to get access to what people would say is people data. We give you access to their general age, their contact information, their location, their socials. And then on the right-hand side, this is some of the cleansing that we're doing to make sure that this data is super easy for you to work with. Full education history, full company experience information of where they work today, how big is that organization, where are they based, what industry is that organization in, as well as the role and level tags and interests. So this can be used for a variety of means, and we'll get into a couple examples here, but just something that I always like to think about is, as a fellow Michigan grad, I'm always more receptive to prospecting when I'm getting prospected into from someone who also went to Michigan, and just tying that relationship together. So when organizations who are doing outbound prospecting, outbound sourcing at scale, I always recommend to think about what are those sort of hooks to get an individual interested in speaking with you, and alma maters or shared skills and interests is kind of the low-hanging fruit that I see. Transitioning from what do we offer on the 720 million professionals to the 72 million companies. We have on the top side what I again would say is kind of the table stakes: social media sites, websites, tickers if they're publicly available, parent subsidiary relationships. But really what we find to be most valuable for the constituents on the line here are going to be around employee composition information. So how is this organization structured? How many SDRs do they have versus sales reps? What's the average years of experience for a sales rep? Are they targeting more upmarket by hiring more enterprise style reps, or is this more of a transactional deal where they can hire SMBs? How is marketing supporting sales, as an example? How many managers to reps do they have, or VPs? So employee count, the number, the head count on a high level, of course, can be valuable, but really where we see customers extracting true alpha from our data is when you're going that 2, 3, 4 level deeper by understanding the true makeup of the organization, thinking about employee composition quite granularly. The other thing that I like to call out is what we call our bottoms up employee count. So we are not sort of modeling or making our best guess on employee count based off of figures that may have been reported by third parties. What we're doing is we're associating the number of employee profiles that we have access to that are claimed to be active employees at an organization, and then summing that up. What this means for you is you have access to the most granular, transparent employee count information possible. So, as an example, if we say company A has 42 employees, there are 42 corresponding employee profiles where you can actually go through and see each one of those profiles to better understand one, the employee composition, but two, ensure that that is the most accurate representation of the employee headcount as possible. Something else that we do to sort of pre-bake insights for you within the PDL company profile data is top next, top previous employers. So a lot of our customers are setting up alerts to say, hey, anyone who worked for Cursor, or anyone who worked for Lovable or OpenAI or XAI or the number of hot AI related companies, we just want to know when someone departs and where they went to. And if the organization where they went to is not on our hit list, we need to start to track this organization, right? The final thing I'll share, and Matt has alluded to in some of his work around headcount being a pretty good indicator of revenue changes, is this department growing? And if so, are they filling sort of a leaky bucket and just over hiring because they know that they're going to be starting to see, or they've been seeing retention issues? Or is this organization growing because there's real revenue opportunities down the road where their sales reps are being retained and then they're starting to bring in more folks as they are potentially going up market or doubling down because they're seeing so much growth? Transitioning from, hey, what is PDL? How do we work with cloud ratings? How can you potentially start to think about this? I wanted to give a couple concrete examples of how you can start to leverage this sort of data. The first is through what we call founder sourcing, right? So there could be folks on the line who are really focused on finding founders, or whether it be founders or CEOs, what are the characteristics of a leader that you're looking for to fill a role in your portfolio, or for you to find the next great founder building something that's going to be super impactful in the marketplace? Based off of some of the tagging that we mentioned around experiences, education history, past work experiences, location, you can start to build these scores, right? So as an example, if you are a private equity fund in the Midwest, you may be optimizing for folks who live within the top 5 to 10 biggest cities within the Midwest region because they're more likely to potentially join the target organization as a CEO. If you're a VC looking to source really, really talented next wave of billion-dollar companies, individuals who held engineering roles or product roles at OpenAI or Perplexity, as two examples, may be more likely to succeed. These are filters and alerts you can set up, with the data itself. And then the final thing, just to flag, is the way that folks should think about accessing PDL data is through two means. The first is programmatic access, whether that be an API, whether it be a data feed like Snowflake or S3. That we do not offer sort of a point and click UI for our customers, so we're only kind of in the ingredients business. But the second way you can interact with this data is through the cloud ratings team, right? We think, of ourselves as purveying really high quality ingredients. And then we have the sommelier Genki and the executive chef Matt and the rest of the cloud ratings kitchen, building really, really flavorful, delectable dishes. So those are sort of the two means of how you can kind of consume this sort of information. In addition to founder sourcing, you can also, as you can imagine, do the same with companies themselves. Track companies in insights around their headcount across department, seniority, location. You can start to sort those organizations based off of, hey, which organizations are doing a really good job of retaining employees? Which organizations are taking tech talent from strong engineering cultures? Are we seeing organizations that have been able to successfully distribute their employee workforce across the world to take advantage of some of the benefits of having a distributed workforce, whether that be go to market options to be able to sell to different regions outside of the US, or financial flexibility of retaining and hiring talent outside of some of the more costly areas in the United States. Finally, portfolio support. I know a lot of you on the line here are thinking about how can you optimize your data stack to support your portfolio. You'd be surprised, or maybe not, by the number of use cases we've seen with private equity funds with large portfolios of organizations who are sort of growth stage organizations now, not totally understand the VP and above makeup of their portfolio. So they're starting to just programmatically track constantly, hey, who are the VPs in our organizations that we're invested in? How can we better support them? How can we invite them to location specific or role specific events that we're putting on to help share best practices in navigating the changes that we're seeing in 2025 and beyond. So finally, another use case just to plant in your mind is, a lot of portfolio support or platform work is focused on hiring. And utilizing PDL data for hiring is kind of a right down the fairway use case for us. So what that means is you can start to create filters to say, hey, I care about individuals who live in this region, who have this number of years of experience, that have worked at A, B, and C companies, or at least held XYZ roles to help build my talent pipeline. So those are kind of a couple of use cases that I just wanted to flag. Really, really appreciate the opportunity to be here today. And from a next steps perspective, feel free to reach out to me directly at sean.saint@People Data Labs, or shoot me a note on LinkedIn if you have any questions. And again, thank you so much for listening and participating. And we're grateful to be here. Thank you.